Excuse us. We need a motion to reconvene to public session, please. Trustee Jaros,
Second.
trustee Saunders. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Accepted.
So we're going to accept the minutes of meeting August 19th. Motion?
Motion to accept the minutes from August 19th.
Thank you.
Second.
Trustee McDowell. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Trustee Miller and trustee Farron are abstaining.
Okay, let's make a motion to accept the minutes from the meeting August 31st.
Motion.
Trustee Miller? Trustee McOwen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
All right, right now,
Farron
we'll,
abstains, sorry.
so right now we will take communications from the public.
That's right. We have Mr. Jeff Monroe.
Here he comes.
It's like being in a movie set, he just hanging out.
Okay, to identify myself, my name is Jeff Monroe. I'm a community resident. I haven't done this in a while. Do I have to give my address too? 420 South, okay. Well, greetings to our new board president and honorable trustees, to our neighbors, administration of the city school district. I want to first start out to correct the topic of discussion. I meant to come to address a donation that has been actually clarified in terms of the process, because I wanted to speak to some issues that I was not clear on. But I want to actually publicly commend Mr. Foreman and Mr. McCormack as being very diligent in their processes of communication, because up till this afternoon I was still very unclear as to the process of donation, and they've been, excuse me, a little winded. I ran to the mic. But to make my point, I want to start out with that affirmation because, quite frankly, my issue of the donation has become less important. What has become more important is a critique of a process that I feel reflects, unfortunately, a benign neglect of our community. I have been on at least 2 committees for this school district in the last year, the Technology Committee and the Policy Committee. And although present members are not all responsible, because most of you are either not on those committees or newly elected, those committees have met each twice, maybe 3 times in the course of the entire year. And there was very little communication between those committees and the community, and I speak as a member of the committee from the community, so I know there was little or no communication to me about some of the progress of those committees. I want to speak to that critically because while I'm very supportive of our school district and our administration, this issue of communication, I think, needs to be highlighted. It's an ongoing issue. It's a blight, frankly, on what I think is a very competent and what I think is laudable administration, and even our trustees in terms of your leadership that I've seen from all of you in the last year and a half. But I'd like to see a correction of this issue of communication because it continues up till now. While I know these committees have new heads, I am not clear, for instance, as of today, the website that speaks to the committee meeting dates are all to be announced. Hopefully that will change. But the final straw, I believe, in terms of this neglect is the decision to move our district trustee board meetings to the second Wednesday of the month, which directly conflicts with the city council meetings, which obviously makes it impossible to make both if engaged communities members want to make both meetings. So I'd like some understanding to close. I'd like to hear some understanding, some rationale as to why that change was made and whose interests that serve. And while I understand everyone is busy and have probably some rational reason, I just don't know what that is.
Okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
my final request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, he had a few issues. He talked about committee reports. The committee reports for policy, I believe, and was it budget?
I can comment briefly. One of the things that we're starting to do, Mr. Monroe, is take notes from our committee meetings and make those notes, if it's the pleasure of the board, available to the public on the website. And the other thing is posting the schedules to the website so that folks who, particularly those committees that are open to the public, folks who are interested in attending, if it's the desire of that committee chair to open it to the public, will have the opportunity to do that. But the communication in terms of what happens in that meetings, the notes will be made available.
Okay.
Just, Mr. Monroe, just to the.
Your mic, Mr. McDowell.
Just to the notion of why the meeting dates was changed, I just simply want to say, just due to meet the schedules of all the trustees here, as you noted already that there are new trustees, so just to fit the schedule so the trustees can be here to do what we need to do, we had to readjust the schedule.
Okay, so is that it for the communication from the public? Okay. All right. Next are reports from the superintendent.
Okay. Good evening again, everyone. I want to take a moment to thank all of our staff for a very smooth school opening. It is not easy to get a district of this size open and have kids in class and teaching and learning happening on the first day. We've been inundated with a lot of late registrations and many special requests, most of which we were not able to accommodate due to space limitations. But I have to commend the various departments who work to try to resolve these issues and deal with some of our parents and students whose requests have been difficult to make and accommodate. I also want to acknowledge our custodial crew and those folks who supervise that group, because we had several projects underway in our district, some of which impacted the ability to get schools ready. This required folks to work over the Labor Day weekend in order to get our buildings ready. And I actually have a full report that I'll share with the board just in terms of the readiness of our buildings, and almost all of them were at 100% readiness on day one. There was one building that was not, and we're addressing that as well. But again, overall, the crew really should be commended for some exceptional work. I'd like to share a little information with you on receivership while Dr. Gail White-Wallace gets ready to come and do her presentation on RTI. We are moving forward with receivership at A.B. Davis. We are required, as you know, to develop a plan, and that plan has to be submitted to the state for approval. That plan is due on September 30th, so we're in the process of completing that plan. We are also required to develop a community engagement team, or CET. And this team is comprised of teachers, parents, community members, and even students if it's appropriate. And that this team is not very different than what the leadership team needed to be under the SIG grant, but that team is also being developed. Now, the team was supposed to, the names of those folks were supposed to be submitted during the summer. We've asked for an extension on that because we did not have access to all of our teachers to find out who was interested during the summer, so that we are in the process of completing as well. As you know, the superintendent, in this case, I have 2 years to act as the receiver for that school, and I believe we have a very solid plan in place that will generate some significant results. I do think, however, that we have to also think of alternative plans so that we're not last minute planning what do we do. But I think we are in a very good position. And the other thing I want to say is oftentimes this process is perceived to be a negative consequence of a school that has been identified as persistently failing. And in this instance, honestly, I think it is an opportunity for us to really look very closely at best practices, not just for A.B. Davis, but to use our learnings from A.B. Davis to make sure other schools don't get on the list, and those that are a step away from receivership, to give us an opportunity to really put some improvement plans in those schools as well. The additional grants that we may be eligible for as the state decides to release those funds will certainly go a long way with providing additional supports for students and teachers. And this plan is really focused around developing teachers, identifying teachers that have not been able to produce the kinds of results we'd like to see at A.B. Davis and moving them to other places that may better serve their needs. But most importantly, it's really about impacting the kind of professional development that will improve teaching and ultimately student outcomes. Once that plan is complete, of course, I'll share it with the board so you will know firsthand what's in this plan, what we're doing, how we're doing it, what the timetables are, and who the people are responsible for it. And at this point, I'm going to ask Dr. Gail White-Wallace to come up and do a very brief synopsis on RTI. RTI is on the agenda tonight as one of the items that you're being asked to approve, and this really takes you through how RTI is being utilized in the district. And as you know, Dr. Gail White-Wallace is our Standards Administrator for Language Arts Literacy. Dr. White-Wallace?
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So I was told they're giving me the axe in 5 minutes, so we're going to make this short and sweet. What we're going to talk about today, great segue, Soup, talking about closing the gap and how do we ensure that the school buildings that are at risk of being in receivership do not get there. RTI is our district plan to ensure that all of our schools, our elementary schools, as well as A.B. Davis, are closing the gaps for our students. RTI is also a state mandate that is comprised of placing students into 3 distinct tiers. Students that are at Tier 1 will function on or above grade level with core instruction from CKLA or the modules. Students in the yellow, which are Tier 2 students, are students that are at risk and falling a slight bit below grade level, and they need some intervention to raise them to their grade level proficiency. And the students in the red, which are Tier 3 students, are those students that the state has mandated receive intensive intervention by special trained teachers and pulled out of their classroom. We have a visual here of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. All of the students are given a benchmark assessment in the beginning of the year, as well as we look at their state assessment scores, and they are placed in either Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Throughout the year, we benchmark assess all of the students to see whether they are growing, are they stagnant, or are they making a decline based on targeted intervention strategies and programs that the teachers are implementing within our school. Benchmarking assessing will take place in the fall, in the winter, and the spring. For students in kindergarten and first grade, it will be the DIBELS assessment, and for those students in grades 2 through 8, it will be the iReady assessment. Tier 1, your low-risk students. So what happens to those students that are at and above grade level? We still want them to grow. So they're going to engage themselves in core instruction with our core English language arts programs. In addition, they're going to receive appropriate small group activities and instruction at their instructional level. For example, a student at Graham School who's functioning on a level 4, when they see the teacher for their small group instruction time, they could be looking at project-based learning, doing some above grade level work, and doing work that will connect to their community on a higher level. So if a student is functioning at an 8th grade level after looking at the data, we're providing them with the strategies and instruction they need to continue to grow and to satisfy their thirst for knowledge. This is what Tier 1 looks like, K2 and 3-6. All of the students in Tier 1 receive their core instruction, and then we differentiate the learning for the students through specified literacy workstations for differentiation. On the board, you'll see there are a list of stations for kindergarten through 2nd grade and for 3rd through 6th grade. During a special time designated in the day, students will engage in small group instruction that is tailored to their needs based on a variety of data points such as DIBELS and iReady. Now, what do we do with our students that have some risk? Of course, we provide them with the Tier 1 instruction, and then the teacher is going to provide the students with researched evidence-based intervention. For kindergarten and first grade, our intervention will be the Assessment and Remediation Guide, FCRR